Thank you for joining me for this month's episode of Veterans Voices. This month we have United States Air Force veteran Steve Cannon as our guest, and we'll be speaking with the Warrior Within founder and director Lauren Turner. And for our veterans profile, we'll be highlighting Lieutenant George Boudre, the United States Army Air Corps. Thank you again for joining us, and I'd like to welcome Steve Cannon. How you doing, Steve?
Hi, Matt.
All right, and so would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised?
Born and raised in Chicago,
Okay.
Chicago, Illinois.
All right, and you volunteered for service in the United States Air Force. Why did you choose the Air Force?
At the time, it was like airplanes,
All right.
even though I ended up never flying that way. But yes, I just thought Air Force was the way to go.
All right. And you enlisted while you were still living in Chicago?
Yes.
Okay.
A couple years after high school.
Okay. And where did you go to basic training or any other specialized training?
Went down to Lackland Air Force Base in Texas, and also did the technical school there. And we also had Air Base Defense because I ended up going as a security policeman.
Okay. And so you received some specialized training, obviously, in your job as a policeman?
Right.
Okay. And what units were you assigned to, and how long were you with those different groups?
Well, we don't use the term units for the Air Force part, but I was stationed, original first duty station was at Pease Air Force Base, which was up in New Hampshire, in Portsmouth. And then I was there 15 months, and then I got transferred overseas to Germany for 3 years at Spangalum Air Force Base. And then I took an additional station or additional extension to my tour to go back stateside, and then I ended up in California at Castle Air Force Base.
Okay. And what was your rank while you were in the Air Force?
Well, I eventually ended up as sergeant.
Okay. And then you said you were in New Hampshire and then Germany and California. Do you have any experiences you'd like to share about your time overseas or here in the States?
I think the experience of being able to go overseas is always great to do. You get a different perspective, especially after you get to know the people there and get a nice perspective of how they see the world and how they see us as the United States, that kind of thing. This is, years back during, Carter and Reagan administration, mostly Reagan. So it is, obviously the world was a lot different back then, but I found the German people very acceptable to us being there, and very hospitable. It was fun to get involved in some of their cultural things doing.
Mm-hmm. And were you able to travel all around Germany or Europe while you were there?
Travel a little bit. The being overseas, it's almost like your own, little town. The air bases are, and they have everything a little town would have, or a campus type of atmosphere. And to get us out there into the community, we would go on different tours and different trips, bus trips. And one of the things I did get involved in a lot was going on what they call Volksmarches. And every little town seemed to have a little walking group. And the walking group would host their Volksmarch for that weekend or that day. And you get to tour the countryside and to see the houses, and it's just very nice, and get really kind of mingle in with the community.
Okay. It's kind of like a hiking club type thing?
It is more casual.
More casual?
It wasn't, you could see splinters of people out there who do take it serious and have the hiking boots, and maybe have something on their back, carrying pack or something like that. But most of the time it's just a casual walk through the countryside or through the town area. And you usually end up at some community space and have beverages and food afterwards.
Okay. And then you said you were in California. Where was the base in California?
Castle Air Force Base is just north of Merced, California, which is pretty much central California. in the middle of the San Joaquin Valley.
Okay. And how long were you there?
Just finished up 6 months. That was the kind of interesting aspect to get this overseas or getting back to the stateside assignment. The minimum I had to extend was 6 months, which I thought was like ridiculous. They should get you for at least a year, but they said 6 months. So I did 6 months, and then I walked across the hall and joined and ended up signing up for the reserves.
Okay.
And I changed jobs into air cargo and worked out of Travis Air Force Base, which is just north of San Francisco.
Okay. And so when you went into the reserves, did you stay in California?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I stayed there for another 3 or 4 years before I moved back this way to the East Coast.
Okay. And then how did you come about getting here into Marlborough?
It was just kind of a fluke type of thing.
Yeah.
I was actually kind of thinking I'd go back up to Portsmouth, but a friend of mine lived in Worcester, or outside of Worcester at the time. So I ended up first starting in Worcester and then slowly worked my way from one town a little closer east and a little closer north, and actually lived in Hudson before I moved to Framingham. But yeah, kind of got stuck in Massachusetts.
Yeah, all right. And what years did you serve? What was, I know you said Reagan
79 to 84. I think that was the years for regular service, and then a couple more years for reserve after that.
Okay. And then did you ever get involved with any veterans organizations anywhere along your path?
It's until recently, I really didn't think much about my past in the military. It's kind of like so long ago, and it just came up. I was watching, I don't know, if a commercial or something on talking about doing yoga for veterans, and one thing happened quickly after the other, and met your next guest, Lauren, and we are involved.
I see you got the shirt. Yeah.
So you know, it's been really nice to get back, you know, and talking with people who've served years back too, and getting in touch with that, and I'm just looking, you know, that this is going to grow and grow, and getting more involved with whatever I can in the community for veterans, whatever I can help.
Mm-hmm. And so, just so everyone knows, Steve is the local instructor for the Warrior Within Yoga Project. And we'll be hearing all about that shortly. But you've been doing that. How long has that been going on? That's how we met. That's how we know each other.
Well, I think, I'm not going to brag, but I think I might have been one of the first instructors Lauren hired. So yeah, it's been over a year now.
Yep. Yep. That's...
And she's done a fabulous job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, sometimes our guests have talked about the different veterans organizations they get involved with, VFW, American Legion, that type of thing. So it's nice to hear that you found a kind of a different avenue to get involved with the veteran community. So, yeah.
I'm trying to do what I can do now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, so yeah, it's great to be able to do this.
Yeah.
And having the opportunity to teach yoga.
Yeah.
For people.
Yeah. All right, Steve, is there anything else you'd like to share about your time in the Air Force, or anything else?
No, it's you know, it's the kind of thing, it's not for everybody, but also the other aspect of it, it's really just a regular job for most everybody in the military. It's just a regular job that they do like any other job. You just happen sometimes to wear a uniform doing it, but most cases, unless you're doing something like actually flying, you know, or working on an aircraft carrier or something like that, then it stretches it a little bit farther from being a regular job. But no, it was a very good experience at the time, and now that it's kind of fun reflecting back to it as where I am now.
Well, thank you, Steve. And with that, we'll be taking a short break.
In the Air Force, we fly airplanes. Our job is to put those aircraft in the sky.
Service it, gas it up, do the inspection, keep it mission ready. None of these jets would make it off the ground without us.
We deal in high-stakes situations, a lot of moving parts, while still maintaining that fast pace.
We're all working towards one mission. A lot of the work is done in teams.
You get to drive and operate all kinds of equipment, from towing trailers to lifting each individual weapon.
never do anything alone. Somebody's always got your back. We rely on each other as technical experts to know how we're going to get it fixed.
You will not find a harder working group of people than U.S. Air Force maintainers. We're a little gritty, but we get the job done.
Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. This month, we'll be interviewing Lauren Turner, the founder and director of the Warrior Within Yoga Project. So welcome, Lauren, and how are you?
Good, thanks for having me.
All right, yeah, thanks for joining us. And, would you like to tell us a little bit of the background of the Warrior Within Yoga Project?
Yeah, of course. Warrior Within Yoga Project was founded in 2022, and the inspiration behind it came a few years before that. I myself am not a veteran, but my grandparents both served. My uncle served. I have a lot of friends that have served. And back in 2019, my uncle Larry, a U.S. Army veteran, was diagnosed with cancer and received his hospice care at a veteran center in New Hampshire. And, we got a chance to visit him and see him in those last few days of his life. And I was just so impressed and so moved by how the veteran community came together to help take care of him in those last few days and really, gave him this dignity in, being strangers, and the only thing connecting them being the fact that he had served at one point. And so after he passed, I wanted to find a way to show my gratitude both to the veteran community, but also find a way to honor his memory. At that time, I had been teaching yoga for several years. I owned a yoga studio, and I thought to myself, well, I know how to teach yoga, and I know that there's a immense need and benefit of yoga for this community. Why don't I give that a go? And what started out as a little passion project on the side, quickly I began to realize that I needed a lot more support to make the impact that I wanted to make. And so in 2022, we started this nonprofit.
Okay. Yeah. And so, I came about learning about this organization. I think you had gotten in touch with the veterans agent, Mike Hennessy, and let him know that you were gonna be starting a class here in Marlborough.
Yeah. So let's see. Early 2023, we had the chance to begin to expand our work from the one class I was teaching in Natick to some more communities. Steve, who you just talked to, must have been at least one of the two first instructors that I hired that I came across. And it was so funny because, veteran yoga isn't this huge thing. It was really hard for me to even find opportunities to teach, which is one of the reasons I started the organization, and just happened across Steve, who not only was a yoga teacher, but had served. So it seemed like a perfect fit. And since then, we've begun to grow. We've been able to reach 10 or 11 different communities here in Massachusetts in the past year or so. This past month, we've had 10 weekly classes in 9 different locations, with one of them being right next door at the American Heritage Museum in Hudson that Steve has been teaching at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been a great class for anyone in the community that's interested. That's Thursdays at 6 p.m.
Yes, Thursdays at 6 p.m. Now, a thing that's unique about what we're doing with yoga, it's not your typical yoga class. What makes what we're doing different, not just that it's for veterans and for service members and for first responders, is that we're really taking a look at what the unique scope of need is for the community and tailoring the way that a class is taught so that it can be accessible both from a culturally relevant standpoint, but also allow anyone that wants to come in and try yoga to be able to participate. So in one of our classes in Natick, we have someone who's 100 years old, World War II veteran, Navy, who comes every single week. We see people who have back injuries, shoulder injuries, the whole gambit, able to come into a yoga class, participate, get the benefits of stress reduction, and where they might not have found that before somewhere else. And they get to do that alongside of their brothers and sisters in arms, are people that, you know, are in the field of serving others, and it makes it, you know, something really special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I know that with the class in Hudson, there's not only veterans, but there's also a first responder. I know there's a firefighter from Northborough who attends regularly. So it's not just veterans, it's also first responders.
Yeah. And for me, I had noticed in the beginning, a lot of the veterans coming in also held other careers in fire, in law enforcement after they had finished in, you know, their time in service. They had friends, and there's a lot of similarities in terms of the amount of operational stress involved in both of those worlds. And because our approach is tailored to the types of things that go on in military or military-like communities, it makes it a natural fit for some of the people in law enforcement or fire to come and be involved as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a mix. It's a mix of, you know, veterans who have long ago have wrapped up their service, people who are currently serving now, and as well as first responders. We also welcome in family members, and so we see spouses coming in, or parents of Gold Star families, adult children of, so it's meant to be inclusive for that whole community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's great. I know I've been going to the classes since I think they started here in Marlborough. I find a lot of benefit to it, not only from the physical aspect, but also mentally, just being able to kind of relax and breathe. I keep hearing Steve in the back of my head, let it all out. So, you know, it's definitely recommended, and it's a great way to just get into yoga a little bit. Like Lauren had said, just coming and seeing what it's about, rather than just jumping into a class, which you may not know all the poses and right. the flow. You know, I've gone to some yoga classes after having started with Warrior Within, and I felt I was better prepared for that, you know, through
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep things to be a little bit more secular than sometimes other yoga classes are, just as a way to, and be that stepping stone into the practice to see what it's about. Because, you know, even keeping it simple, focused on breathing, focused on, you know, mindfulness and mm-hmm. attention training, and, you know, some of the more smaller movements to get that range and recover that range of motion, can be really, really effective and highly efficient at reducing levels of stress and allowing participants to learn how to self-regulate. So then after they are out of their yoga class and, I don't know, they're on their drive home and they hit the red light, they now have these tools to go from like a more agitated state to a more relaxed state at a much more easily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree and find the benefits with that. So yeah, there's definitely some truth with that. And would you like to share kind of some of the other locations? I know we have some viewers that might not be just from the Marlborough Hudson area.
Of course, yeah. A lot of it is in the Metro West region, but we are up in Devens at Clear Path for veterans, New England. We have a class in Natick, Holliston at the VFW. We are in Franklin at the Franklin Senior Center. We have a class right now in Milford, Bridgewater. There's one wrapping up in Medford, Hudson, of course, and Sharon with 22 Mohawks. And, you know, in the next year, we're going to continue to work to connect with communities that are interested in this and do what we can to reach them. Those connections are just so important. To keep on building the bridges between the yoga world and the veteran community.
Yeah. And so some of the other things that happen too are some fundraisers to help with the organization. So would you like to talk about those?
Yeah, we want the community to feel like they have an involvement too. So even though most of our weekly programs are designated and free to the veteran and first responder community, we do try to have monthly classes at different locations that the public are welcome to. It's a paid class, but their proceeds then go to support the longevity and the sustainability of the programs that we are running. So we've been partnering since the very beginning with Medusa Brewing Company in Hudson, and they have done such a terrific job of providing us the space, helping us to advertise these classes, and, you know, really without them, I don't know if we would have been able to start what we started a year and a half ago in Marlborough, and we're continuing to work with them. So this week, towards the end of March, we have a class there, and then April 27th, we'll have a class there as well at 10:30. And we try to do them once a month, and as long as people keep showing up, we're going to keep running with it.
Yeah, I've attended a few of those as well, and they're great. It's interesting doing yoga in the middle of the tap room.
Yeah.
It's an interesting experience, but it also includes a beverage after, so you get to meet some of the people you're doing yoga with.
Yeah, and it's a great way to bridge those gaps. We survey people coming in, or we do ask, what's their affiliation to the veteran and first responder community, and about 30%, I think even more at times, are somehow affiliated either as veterans or as first responders or family members. So it's a great way to bridge the gap between the people who serve and the communities that they're serving.
Mm-hmm. And then I know we'll have some of the website information up on the screen here for folks, but would you like to just highlight some of your social media?
Yes,
website?
We're on Facebook. You can find us, Warrior Within Yoga Project. We're on Instagram as well. Same thing, handle is Warrior Within Yoga Project. And our website is www.warriorwithinyoga.org.
Okay, great, yeah. So if anyone's interested in coming to the class tomorrow night at the American Heritage Museum, do some yoga above tanks. It's you can sign up on there. And again, that's 6 p.m. on Thursday nights in Hudson, the American Heritage Museum. Well, Lauren, I just want to say thank you very much. I know for me personally, the yoga has been very good for many reasons. And I'm very grateful that you have taken on this project and seen it grow. Very important. I know some other folks feel the same way, that are pretty religious about coming to at least the events that I've been to. And again, just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you. It means a lot to see this actually grow from a tiny seed and reach the folks that we've been trying to reach. And the more people talk about it, the more, leaders like yourself talk about it, the more people we will find coming into a class that might really, really, really need it. So I appreciate your advocacy too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Anything else you'd like to share about the project?
No, unless you have any other questions for me. I just want to thank you. I want to thank Steve again for, coming along this crazy ride with us and doing what he does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think with that, we'll be taking a short break. Welcome back. And for this month's Veterans Profile, we'll be highlighting George Edward Boudreau. And so for anyone who's been watching the Masters of the Air on Apple TV, George was a B-17 pilot, and we wanted to kind of make that distinction, to the local connection to the Masters of the Air. So George was a second lieutenant in the 339th Bombardment Squadron of the 96th Bombardment Group. He was born the 2nd of June, 1921 here in Marlborough, the second of 5 children born to Alfred and Rose Boudreau. He was a 1939 graduate of Marlborough High School and made his home with his family at 131 Broad Street. George had an interest in flying and attended flight school locally and was known in the local aviation community. He was working at the Lombard Governor Corporation in Ashland, Massachusetts when he enlisted in the Army Air Corps in November of 1942. He received training as a pilot through much of 1943 at the 7-Up Bottling Company in Fresno, California, the Polaris Flight Academy in Lancaster, California, Marfa Army Air Base in Texas, where he earned his pilot's wings, and at Roswell Army Airfield in Texas. He eventually qualified as a pilot on the B-17 Flying Fortress. Sadly, George escorted the body of his friend and fellow pilot Larry Essel home to Los Angeles following the death of his friend during training in New Mexico. And George was ultimately assigned to the 339th Bombardment Squadron of the 96th Bombardment Group and met his new unit in England in June of 1944. He flew a number of missions over Germany and was awarded an Air Medal. On the 21st of July, 1944, while on a bombing mission to Regensburg, Germany, the B-17 George was piloting took heavy anti-aircraft fire and the crew was forced to bail out. George parachuted to safety only to be impaled by a tree branch on his final descent. German authorities buried his body in a local cemetery. He was reinterred at the Saint-Avold Cemetery in Lorraine, France, Block A, Row 13, Grave 45. Boudre Street in Marlborough is named in his honor. Thank you for joining us for this month's episode of Veterans Voices. I'm Matty Sargent, and I'd just like to thank our guests, Steve Cannon and Lauren Turner, and we'll see you next time.